So if you keep following that trend line on heavier sherry, the other one that we do, at least at the time of this recording, have in the store is this exceptional cask,
Mhm.
which was kind of the one that like blindsided me and got me to start thinking about Craigellachie a lot more seriously again.
Oh.
So to explain a little bit about this exceptional cask.
Yeah, so this is the amount of the exceptional gas that I have left. So as you saw, 13, almost full bottle, 17, a little lower, but I like them all equally. So yeah, my Tabasco bottle has some of that single cask. Um, and this was actually a release. There were two Craigellachie's and three Aberfeldy single casks that were released in North America. And this was the first time ever that we've released single casks of any of our five single malts here in North America. So travel retail and over in Europe, they've come out, but we've never actually released them here. So this was our first kind of, voila, like, you're finally getting to try our whole portfolio. And now we're going to, offer something where you can focus in on a single cast. So it was a Craigellachie, a 19-year-old and a 23-year-old. We do have a core range 23, so that's a really cool one to try side by side. That's only available in California. This Craigellachie 19-year-old is just available in New York State and Illinois. So it's split between us, and it's a second fill sherry butt. So bottled at 55.2% ABV. I'd have to pull up the sell sheet. I mean, only a few hundred bottles. It was a sherry butt, so maybe you have it on that tin
This
right there.
one, yeah, 402.
Okay,
Yeah. I
which
I
is
snagged
good for
bottle
sherry.
144 of 402. We
Nice,
still, yeah.
right in the middle.
Yeah. Good
So,
spot to be.
um,
So
yeah, it's a really beautiful, beautiful whiskey.
you were talking a little earlier about again comparing this to something like the 13, which more people have probably tried the 13 or are about to, hopefully. And you mentioned that even though this one is 55.2, it's kind of lighter. Um, how do you explain that, even with the intensity? I mean, you were talking a little bit about sherry maturation and how that chills things out, and just the way Craigellachie ages. Can you talk a little more about kind of how this presents, and that maybe people should not be afraid of it at 55.2 even?
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the reasons why people like cask strength, right? Is you kind of get two whiskeys in one, so you get to see it how it was bottled right out of the cask, and you try it at that, and if it's good to go, or you can start manually lowering the ABV. I mean, you have a whole range that you can work within, a few drops all the way up to half the glass, and lowering it down. I mean, a lot of blenders, that's how they're actually, blending and marrying whiskey. So it just gives you that broad range. And this single cask, I'm actually very thankful it was in a second fill sherry butt. So it means that it already had Craigellachie whiskey, whether it went into the 17 or 13, we don't know for sure, but it already had Craigellachie single malt, new make spirit in it once. That was vatted for whatever it needed to be for, and then it was filled again with Craigellachie and then sat for 19 years. So it doesn't have a ton of oak influence, as you probably felt, which I always say when you get to 20 plus years, really kind of 25 plus, but even at 20 plus years old, whether it's a single cask, small batch, core range, you really need to start asking, but no, really, what are the casks that were used? Because you can get a lot of oak input at that point. And so, you just want to you're going to spend probably a decent amount of money on these whiskeys. You want to make sure that it still has some, at least in my opinion, some of those vivacious, distillery characteristics still alive, and that the oak didn't overtake it. You don't want a one note wonder, right? That's just maybe oak and headed along. And they're not all like that, but it is something that you start to ask. So this 19-year-old, it doesn't have a ton of oak influence. It still has this kind of, and you've tasted Anthony too, so put in your 2 cents, but I still get a lot of these more delicate stone fruits, so not as punchy. And it's kind of a hybrid of a more delicate 17, but a little bit more robust 23. I mean, it truly lives right in the middle, with some of these nice floral fruit qualities, but also this kind of peppery, bright, almost musty, dusty sort of quality starting to creep in there. which is actually those burnt tendencies that you see in the 13 being subdued
Yeah.
into that. So
It's like it's the same person. It's still got like the same character as the 13. You get that identity in it, but the 13 is, they're both teenagers technically, but that to me is definitely more the rebellious, angry teenager. And this is like, he's chilled out. He's got a regular job that's still kind of cool, but like he's a
yeah,
little
he's
more
on a
relaxed.
slower level. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He got a dog, has to stay at
Yeah.
home more. Like, but it's really like, I would almost say strangely approachable. Like
Mhm.
this is one where if I have anyone over who is afraid of higher strength whiskey, this is a
Mhm.
really good one to kind of start them out with.
Mhm.
It's giving me everything that I want from someone who, like most of the stuff in my collection, is probably over 50% or at least 46. So this still makes me happy, but it doesn't scare you away either. And I think
Right.
trying that 13 on its own without any other sense of any of the other Craigellachie's, you would think 55% Craigellachie is going to completely blow me away.
Right. Yeah, that it's almost going to be maybe too robust or too aggressive and attack the palate. And that's actually the 19 on, into the 23. And we released a 33 as well. Anything really above that 20+ year old mark, it has that string of this, that burnt quality turns into more of this kind of sparkly, dusty, musty. And actually the 23 and 33 have almost a tropical spin on them. It's very hard to imagine when you go from that 13 and then, the sherry, have your sherry in the 17. But I mean, that's the power of maturation, right? Is organic chemistry happening with that alcohol and those different alcohols and compounds with that oak cask. And that's what we're able to transform that aggressive 13-year-old into. So, yeah, there's every mood that you could possibly have. Craigellachie has an offering for you. So,
Nice. Cool. Any other quick thoughts on Craigellachie or the 19 before we move on?
well, I think you're really lucky to still have some of the 19. That sold out pretty quickly. So good job on snagging some more bottles. I knew I had a lot of friends out of state saying, give me a bottle, give me a bottle. And I was able to snag a few, but then you also feel bad that you work for the brand and you're buying up all of the stock. So I wanted New York to still have some left. So very exciting that you still have some in stock.
Yeah, no, for sure. And is this, I mean, it seems like it's working well. Is this something that there's plans to continue doing these exceptional casts, I would imagine?
Yeah, so actually coming up this fall, obviously there are some slight changes of plans, but it looks like it's still going to be on track. It's going to be some small batch releases with some very unique finishing casts coming out. So still higher ABVs. It'll be anywhere from that 43 to 46%. And then we may be able to sneak in another single cast there too. So every year it'll flip flop. So single cast or some small batch. Stephanie has been laying down a lot of our whiskeys with some unique finishing casts. So we want people to have the opportunity next to try some of those. And that will be for Aberfeldy and Craigellachie as well.